semester here at San Juan College, part of what is hoped to be a new certificate program here at San Juan College. Trisha Rickey is here from the psychology department here at San Juan College. Good morning, and thank you for coming in this morning.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Good to have you with us, and this is an exciting new-ish class that we're talking about, but a potential new certificate program, right?
Yes. We're talking about offering a certificate program in eco-psychology and adventure therapy for people particularly who are interested in working therapeutically with people in outdoor settings. And so this is, I had initially offered an eco-psychology and adventure therapy class that were combined and realized that was too much material. So I did the separate eco-psychology class, and now we're going to be doing just the adventure therapy class.
Okay. Now, give us a little idea of what we're talking about, because for folks who maybe haven't heard these terms before,
Sure.
They're not quite sure how that fits into maybe what they would normally think about. So what are we talking about when we talk about these types of things?
Yeah, so adventure therapy is the aspect of all of these kinds of programs that has to do with prescribed risk or prescribed challenge. So it could be intellectual challenge, physical challenge, and that could be individual, but often with a group. So in the class, we're going to be talking about group dynamics and what they call the facilitated wave, or assessing what's going on in a group with each of the group members, prescribing some kind of challenge for the group, and then kind of riding the wave of whatever might happen with the group, which is part of the idea, is that you don't quite know where the group's going to go.
Right.
So, that's the general idea.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And we've heard a lot, at least I think I've heard a lot about, how some individuals act very differently as a member of a group. And it's that group dynamic that
Sure.
you kind of talk about and study, I guess. When folks do get together, there are different things that impact their behavior.
Yeah, so there's definitely a social psychology component, but yes, definitely when you're working with a group, you kind of think of the group as the entity. You're aware of what is going on and the background of each individual member, but also the group takes on a life of their own and goes through a process of, I don't know if you've heard terms like that they're forming and storming, that there can be conflict in the group, a conforming period, before the group kind of coalesces around various issues. So you're kind of, when you're working with groups that way, you're looking at what is happening during the group process, but also what's happening with each individual within the group.
Got it. No, I have heard about that. So that's very interesting to me. And so this class is part of this hopefully approved certificate program that's coming, but it could also be picked up by other students who need an elective or something else that may relate to some of their field of study as well, right? This works in different areas.
That's right. It is an approved elective within the psychology program or the human services program, but I would really hope to see students from a number of disciplines. I would think this would be appropriate not just for anybody who wants to learn about how to therapeutically support groups from a psychological perspective, but also anybody who's going to be working with groups in general. So definitely teachers. In fact, the umbrella that adventure therapy falls under is experiential education. The Association of Experiential Education is, where you are licensed and certified as an adventure therapist, and came out of a lot of the work of John Dewey, learning by doing, working with students in terms of where they're headed. So I would think definitely for teachers, but anybody who wants to supervise groups, people in business, anybody who's interested in how groups work, this would definitely be an elective that they might want to look into.
Got it. Very good. And it's going to start at the start of the spring semester here in a couple of weeks, right?
It's going to start the second half of
second half.
So,
good.
So yeah.
So we've got a time.
Yes, definitely. So I think after spring break.
So we're talking March time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's important for folks to know, I think, too, that it's not a class that's going to start here in January. It's going to start in 8 weeks or so?
Well, if people have seen the flyers, it does seem to indicate that it's starting in January, although we did kind of pivot with the Omicron variant,
Sure.
and just because it's an in-person class, because I should say we're going to do it in the HHPC, and there's a wonderful area outside there, so we're going to spend kind of half of the class talking and half of the class doing. So we'll use the challenge course, we'll do other activities outdoors. So with
March is better.
concerns,
March is better for outdoor.
better for warmth, March is better for the
Right.
variant. So yeah.
A lot of reasons behind that decision.
Right.
I understand. And so with other maybe real life applications, I'm thinking maybe tour guides, scout leaders, all those types of things. Is that also something that might work into a class like this and be very helpful?
Definitely. I mean, I would say the areas that you most heavily think about adventure therapy would be wilderness therapy guides,
Right.
which are taking at-risk youth into wilderness areas. There's outdoor orientation programs at a lot of colleges that would help students get to know one another, spend time outdoors together. There's a lot of residential programs for youth that incorporate a lot of adventure therapy techniques, but certainly any role that you might play in terms of being a group leader, a mentor, this would be applicable.
Right. And you mentioned business owners or business leaders and things like that too, of just dealing with groups in their own organization. You don't have to be outside.
Definitely.
But it works for that too. We're talking kind of all these different scenarios, right?
There's so many different activities you could engage in. It's just kind of without limit.
Right.
So yes. In fact, we'd kind of talked to the business department here about joining forces, because they talk about that too. They talk about, how groups work together and how...
Or don't.
Or don't,
Right,
and leadership
yeah.
within groups. So there's a lot of applications in that area as well.
Right. And of course, we all know that the county, the state, the city has been doing a lot of outdoor recreation pushing
Yes.
in this area, economic development, potential job opportunities, career opportunities. So that sounds like it would be a good partner as well.
Very much. We're thinking maybe this is the time to be focusing on this as this area becomes more of a outdoor draw.
Right.
And hopefully as more and more programs are developed and companies come into this area who hope to capitalize on our beautiful natural surroundings and activities that we can take part in outdoors
Right.
as groups.
But we
Yeah.
definitely have a lot of opportunities for adventures right in our own backyard, literally in our own
That's right.
backyard.
Well, and of course, I haven't mentioned that if you were wanting to, be a raft guide or teach rock climbing, and so another thing we're going to be talking about in this class is what is the right level of risk, how to assess not just the physical needs of the group members, but also their past experiences, how much anxiety they have, what their capabilities are emotionally and physically, and choosing the right level of risk. Because if you choose a level of risk that is too challenging for a group, that can create a negative outcome. And if you ask a group to do something that is too simple, then you don't have engagement. So that's part of the process as well.
Very good. Good to know. And again, really important for any person who's thinking about getting into this maybe line of work, or again, as we mentioned, maybe doing it as a hobby, as a scout leader or a group leader, getting folks out. And again, the class is Intro to Adventure Therapy, so we're really thinking it's more based towards maybe outdoor things, but it could be certainly used for groups indoors.
We're going to do a lot of activities indoors as well.
Okay.
I mean, if you talk to somebody who does adventure therapy for a living, they, kind of go with, is it raining outside? What, does somebody have an injury? How can we accommodate that? And just kind of have their go bag. And what are some things I can pull out of here? So is the group putting together a big puzzle? Or are they building a house of cards? There's all kinds of things that groups can do together
Right.
in any setting.
And this class teaches you kind of how to react to those different forces that you maybe can't control, I suppose.
Right. How to assess what groups need, how to create the a challenge that is effective, and how to, it's the term that often adventure therapists use is squiggles, that things happen, whether the group becomes really frustrated, they are not working well together, they're angry at you, the leader, and that these are actually things to be welcomed, that because whatever characteristics people have are going to be, hopefully if you're choosing the correct challenge, you're going to be acted out in that way. And so the process of working through, is somebody very domineering? Does somebody feel inept in certain situations? How can you facilitate that process so that there can be transformation?
Right.
Often. And I will just also mention that now that we know more about neuropsychology, as we know that, you can talk to somebody about not feeling very capable, you can talk to somebody about being domineering, which only engages their prefrontal cortex, but if you are actually doing activity that engages their motor cortex, that's bilateral, engaging both sides of their brain because they're moving or engaging in an activity, and they have a transformational experience of learning to step forward, learning to trust people, learning to step back and let other people do things, that this can create more lasting change because it is experiential.
Right.
So, yeah.
And you as someone who's taken this class or understands all this from the class has a better insight into how the group's going to react to some of these things.
Right. And how to manage whatever happens. That's why they call it the facilitated wave, because it's kind of, you don't know what's going to happen in a group, and you kind of trust that whatever needs to come forward will come forward. I mean, this is also a lot of John Dewey experiential education stuff that you're asking groups questions, you're seeing where you're directing them, but you're also facilitating whatever kind of process emerges.
Right.
So.
And it sounds like, we just have a couple of minutes remaining this morning, it sounds like to me that we're learning more, you are learning more about this, and so maybe for someone listening or watching us this morning that's maybe taken a class like this, or maybe thought about this maybe years ago, it's maybe changed a bit because of some of this new things that we're learning
definitely.
about.
Yes,
I
would say, the primary influences in the beginning adventure therapy had to do with experiential education and cognitive behavior therapy, which is that our emotions, our thoughts, our behavior are intertwined. So if you change any aspect of that, it changes other things. So if I have a different experience, that can change what I think and what I feel. But what has really emerged, and neuropsychology is a really new field that we're learning a lot about how our brains work. It helps explain why this is so effective,
right,
because we are engaging our brain more fully in whatever activity we're taking part in.
Right. Fascinating. Trisha Rickey is my guest this morning. She is the instructor of this Intro to Adventure Therapy class. It will begin in about March, second half of the spring semester here at San Juan College, part of a hopefully new certificate in this area of adventure therapy that you hope to offer here. And so this is a great way to get started, but it's also an elective for a lot of other classes. I'm looking at your brochure, no prerequisites,
Correct.
No experience necessary, so just show up if you're someone...
Any physical ability, we'll work it out. Whatever people need.
Okay, there you go. And so we just have to wrap it up, but if folks have more questions about this, can they reach out to you through the business department? What's the best way to, or psychology department, pardon me?
Yes, my email is Rickey, Rickeyt at sanjuancollege.edu.
Okay. Very good. Or talk to the registrar's office here at San Juan College to see how to sign up and get registered.
Absolutely. They're very aware.
Very good. And that's an important thing, too, to make sure you have enough students signed up so this class will be able to go forward.
Yes, we'd love to have this take off.
Wouldn't it be great? Wonderful. Yeah. Well, exciting to hear about it. Thanks for coming and talking to me about it.
Thank you so much, Scott.
You're welcome. That is Trisha Rickey, my guest this morning from the psychology department here at San Juan College with me on KSJE.